Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. You're about to watch a replay of our Tuesday night Twitch stream, the Million Dollar Mission Week 14 edition, where I take a look at my previous week's 150 NFL DFS lineups from FanDuel and DraftKings. These streams are a great resource because it gives you 30 minutes or so if you watch them live to ask questions about high-level NFL DFS tournament strategy and pick our brains about how we construct our lineups. In this particular episode, we talked about game stacks, why they're still the way to go in building tournament lineups, despite how crazy some of the lineups have been that have been winning the largest DraftKings contest lately. We took your questions about player pools. We talked about the late news between Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, how that affected my decisions for my lineups. And then with the upcoming WFFC Fan Championship on FanDuel, I know a lot of you out there have been grinding tickets for that. We talked about some strategy for a 15,000 player field and how these end of the year ticket contests can be used and how you should build your lineups for those. Again, encourage you to watch these streams live, twitch.tv/Occupy Fantasy, so you can ask questions directly. You can always ask questions in the comments below too about NFL DFS strategy. So I think you'll enjoy this episode. Sit back and take some notes.
What's up, everybody? It is Moose and Brian from OccupyFantasy.com at OccupyFantasy on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Here with Brian at Brian Jester FF, CEO of Occupy Fantasy. And I always forget to turn my Dom Best odd screen off, Brian, every time we do the stream.
Play.
So, but other than that, what's up, man? How's it going?
I'm good, man. Good. We always get those rogue Dom Best alerts when we're on stream, but good to hear them. Believe me, it's better to hearing those now than back in March and April when we heard zero Dom Best alerts with everything going on. So, but yeah, good to be here. And the season end is rapidly approaching. And on Sunday, we got some of the biggest tournaments of the year.
Absolutely. And hopefully, fingers crossed, might have scored an Xbox Series X today. So waiting for that to come in. Never over. It's never here till it's here. So
that's true.
It was funny. I was sitting there chilling. I got the alert for PS5. I was like, all right, let me see. Sold out. Like, I go fill water, come back. I was like, well, let me try an Xbox, and it's just there. And there's one left in stock at the store. I was like, all right, perfect. Let me order it, and it said it'll be here Saturday. So fingers crossed.
Well, I hope you get it, Moose, because those things have been difficult to come by. I know for sure. It's harder to get an Xbox or a PS5 than winning a damn GPP these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but we're not here to talk about video games. We're here to talk about the $1 Million Mission, which is where we review Brian's 150 lineups from last week, see how he did, see how other people did, and answer your questions here live on Twitch. What's up, Nitro? Says, what's up, guys? What's up, Biz? And Bismo asks, in hindsight, what play do you most regret, whether it be exposure to a certain player, too high, too low, playing or fading a certain player in general, etc.?
So you mean just in general, Bismo, right? Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's a really good jumping off point here. I do want to talk about a mistake, and I don't know if it's a mistake, or maybe I just misread the situation most this week. And I'll get into a more general answer as the story unfolds. But about, I guess, 90 minutes before lot, we get news that Leonard Fournette was inactive.
Yeah.
And while I didn't really think that was that big of a boost for Ronald Jones, I thought it was some sort of signal that they wanted to run the ball more, that Jones would get more touches, even though they did have 4 backs active. Now, if that game got weird and they were trailing, then yeah, LaShawn McCoy, Keyshawn Vaughn potentially are going to get work. And I thought to myself, on FanDuel, where touchdowns are more important, and Ronald Jones not going to play a lot in the passing game, I should probably get some exposure to him because I didn't already have any.
Mm-hmm.
And David Montgomery was kind of the closest in salary, and he was number 2 or number 3 ranked on our model. And I said, well, I'm going to keep David Montgomery in my game stacks because that makes sense. And I'm going to take him out of non-game stacks and put in Ronald Jones, at what should be significantly lower ownership. Ronald Jones ended up at like 24% ownership on FanDuel in the big contest, which was just an absolute disaster. Montgomery was still higher owned at 33%. And then just literally dump as much salt as possible in the womb, Montgomery just rips off like a 70-yard touchdown run right off the bat.
Yeah.
So, again, I don't know if it was a bad play or not, and that's something I need to look into. But I think these types of things we can't beat ourselves up over. We had an idea, or at least I had an idea of what might be a good play. Didn't work out. But for me, Bismo, in hindsight, the biggest mistakes I make is when I read the ownership wrong. Specifically in Showdown, not as much on main slates, but really getting the ownership or what the field's going to do wrong is one of my biggest regrets. And again, that's not something you can figure out beforehand, but once it locks and you see it, just like, oh fuck, this sucks.
Yeah, there's not many things that really take you off. Like, you and I would talk after each showdown slate to see how our ownership did, and it's like, all right, cool, we projected the guy for 20%. Oh fuck, he's 67%. Oh god,
Yeah.
That's not good.
It's mostly like a slot receiver or a tight end on FanDuel Showdown that we get those types of discrepancies, and that's fine. Like if that happens and I'm way underweight, I'm cool with it. But it's really when like I think this guy might be highly owned, and we should probably fade him or go way under, and he ends up at like 20% in Showdown. Like, oh well, not really getting much out of this, or vice versa, or like think guy's gonna be not as popular and he ends up 30% or something. So really just pegging the field incorrectly is probably the biggest mistake or regret I'll have, and I'll beat myself up for not realizing what went wrong.
Yep. Nitro says, not a building fault, but I had a decent amount of Giovanni Bernard.
Yep, I did too, and he fumbled early, and I don't know if he was like reprimanded as a result, or it was just part of their game plan that he wasn't going to get as much work. But yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't the end all to my slate. A lot of other things went wrong too. But yeah, it kind of sucked to see him not play a ton of snaps.
And one thing that I actually look back on, and I knew it locking in my lineups, is I actually had the highest amount of players in my player pool all season this last week. I had 70 players, just because there's so many underperforming wide receivers. There's so many games that I like that could potentially be game stacked. And once I knew it, I was like, I know this is gonna be terrible. I know this is gonna be bad for me.
a decent amount of running backs too that I thought were viable. So yeah, it was definitely tough cutting down. I'm with you there, Moose. It was definitely a tough slate overall for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at how you did last week. So if we take a look here, and on FanDuel last week, 24-66 in injuries, 875 in winnings for a minus 65% ROI.
Bang bang. Great terrible week. Yeah, this is one of the worst weeks, probably close to my floor in NFL Classic, I would say. Yeah, rarely going to get much lower than this. Maybe we'll get a 75% ROI slate in there, but yeah, probably about as bad as it gets.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty. I'm not gonna lie. Thank you, Patrick, for the 11th month streak. That's awesome.
Appreciate you, Patrick. Thank you.
Yeah. And so then if we go to DraftKings, a little better. 1350 in entries, 710 in winnings for a minus 47% ROI.
The rare back-to-back weeks where I did better on DraftKings. I will say the lower owned player in stacks is leading to higher ROIs for me on DraftKings. So that's good to see. A little silver lining here. And otherwise, what was a pretty terrible week.
Yeah. And if we combine it all together, how you've done year to date, 48.1K in entries, 102K in winnings, still over 100% ROI.
I'll take it. 100% plus ROI in a specific sport type is ridiculous. Yeah. So I'm cool with it. And this week is going to be the biggest indicator of whether this increases significantly or drops relatively significantly. So we'll include this in next week's $1 Million Mission. But I have 60 plus tickets to the Fan Championship on Sunday. No live final appearances, but I'll include my satellite cost for next week. That's not included in this yet. But I'll include my satellite costs because you figure 60 tickets in the WFFC Fan Championship, that's $250 each. It's around 15K in entries. I think my satellite costs were about 10K. So, I got them for 66% value. So happy there. And now I just got to go take down the million.
Let's go. Patrick says, well, this week is the week to be hot. Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, man, I've been telling everybody. I'm just saving my variance for this week. So I got the big 3K showdowns on Thursday. Got the 2 tickets there. I have a $1,500 main event ticket on DraftKings on Sunday. I'm hoping to get more there. And then, of course, I got the Fan Champs on FanDuel.
Absolutely, yeah. And if we take a look at this chart of how you done year to date by ROI, courtesy of Biz Charts. Yeah, you've had 2 spikes. And it's slowly drip, drip, drip. You got to get that spike week up. This is going to be the week, spike week.
Dude, it's like everything's coming together perfectly for a spike this week. Yeah, let's get it off the charts. But yeah, this is pretty usual. And, if you play as high risk as I do, it's going to look a lot like this. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a professional DFS player, this is something you have to look forward to.
And as Bismo points out, break the graph.
Yes, please break it this week.
Yeah. Patrick says he only has 1 ticket for Sunday. Hey, that's all you need.
Yeah. Do you have questions, Patrick, about how to approach it, or anybody in the chat, or if you're watching this replay on YouTube, if you have Fan Championship tickets, and I hope you do, because we've been preaching to try to get those tickets all season. There's going to be a special section in the Daily Plug for Sunday slate. If you have tickets, here's what to do. Not like here's lineups, but like here's a strategy to take. We'll probably talk about it a little bit on Saturday too for our Saturday stream. But if you have questions about it now too, there's also a great time to get in depth and discuss it. While on Saturday we're going to have just a million this player questions. So now if you want over high level strategies, is probably the time to do it.
Or even not necessarily specific questions, just actually it's a question. But if you're like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing, is this potentially a right approach?
Yeah, like Ken just asked here. So should I run different game stacks or the same one if I have a handful of tickets? Really good question, Ken. And I think it comes down to your investment in the Fan Championship. Like how much money have you entered? How big of a ticket is this for you personally? Because if you're like me and you invested 10K, I mean that's not small change. I want to get some money back. I'm not gonna play it safe, but I'm still gonna use my usual strategy and whatnot. But let's just say you have one ticket, or let's say you have two tickets, and that's a big deal for your bankroll. Then maybe do two different game stacks. Give yourself two different chances to try to hit. If you're okay with airballing a couple tickets, yeah, go with the one game. If you really like one game, go with it. I think the biggest thing is what do these tickets mean to you, and because I mean it's also the mental aspect too. It was like we've been grinding these tickets all season. It's pretty rough mentally if you airball after grinding for 15 weeks. So it really comes down to a lot of different factors.
What contest was that? I actually think it was a tennis contest that I grinded like legit 2 months for. Got like 40 tickets, airballed every single one of them. And I was like, God, this was terrible. It was very brutal. So the mental aspect is something to think about. Bismo, you can put Zywoo in your WFFC lineups. You get, what is that? Like you do an MLB, it's like select non-starting players.
Yeah, you have to click uncheck the non-starters and slide in Zywoo. That's a little trick for you there.
Yeah. Cool. So, so Brian, I know last week you couldn't get in the Fantasy Labs contest dashboard, but we're in it this week. Do you want to hop over there?
Yeah, due to our own incompetence, we couldn't get into it last week. So yes, let's hop into it. Again, just for pure transparency here, this is the free Fantasy Labs contest dashboards, fantasylabs.com. They do great work over there. We love using their free tools, as we say in our ultimate guide and on our streams and everywhere. We can tell you if there's a free tool out there, we're not going to tell you not to use someone else's free tool. Yes. Fantasy Labs contest dashboard is probably the best tool if you're building tournament lineups to research what the top players do. They just revamped it as of like a week or two ago. So we're going to play with some of its newer features.
And just to harp back on how awesome a lot of these free tools are. In the Ultimate Guide, there literally is a section called Free Tools of like 20 different things that you can use for free, or places that have free tools that will absolutely better your DFS.
Yeah, dude. We know there are other great tools out there. We're not going to say you only have to use Occupy Fantasy. Hell, there are other subscriptions out there that people subscribe to that are also Occupy members. We get that. But free tools, would be stupid for us not to tell you they're the best free tools out there to help your game.
Yep, absolutely. Cole, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that, bro. And so let me go ahead and pull us up here. And we'll go to we're going to the Fantasy Football Millionaire, or are we going to the Slant?
Let's go to the Slant because that's what I played. And we can analyze some stuff there.
So I'm still a bit new to this new dashboard, but I will say one thing I like is they have a field exposure table over here that, I don't know if you can see it, but it shows the entire ownership for that player, then ownership for the top 20%, top 10%, and top 1%, which is really,
that's kind of
really
sick.
nice.
So it kind of tells you, who the most important players were for the week, for sure. Can you do like one zoom out? I don't know if you can just do like one more zoom.
Does that work?
Let me see here. I'm a couple seconds behind. Yeah, I'm
all right.
I'm blind.
We're doing
so
it on the fly. Hold on. See if this works.
Puck Prof in the chat. What's up, man? What's going on? Welcome. Mooses. Look at this. This is great.
All right, we're on the fly. We're doing it on the fly. What was it? It's like,
fuck it, we'll do it live.
Do it live. All right, so I messed up with the filters a little bit. I think we're good.
All right, Bisman wants to know who the highest owned in the top 1% was this week. I would be willing to guess. My guesses for this week would be David Montgomery, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry number 1 with 59 points, 59.6.
Oh, the Cowboys defense, of course, too. Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, Cowboys defense. David Montgomery, 32%.
And of course, fucking Devontae Adams. Never going to be out of the top 1% of anybody's exposures.
No.
This makes sense. Kelsey went off for about 1,000 yards, highest scoring tight end. Derrick Henry, D. Hember, Jonathan Taylor went off at pretty low ownership, and then D-Mont went off too, as we already talked about this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at you, and I'll type in your name. I love how it has actually like the ROI. It's like, yeah, you lost a bunch of money here.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
So you used a player pool of 75 players, max of 34%, which was DeAndre Washington. And that was one thing we talked about. So, DeAndre Washington, we said jam him in, not lock button, but definitely put him in some lineups. What was your thought on him?
It was one of those weeks where I was using such cheap game stacks, I didn't have to lock button him in, and there were other cheap plays I liked. In context of other slates, he might have been a lock button, and he would have been 6, scoring 8 points or whatever it was. But again, he was in a good spot. We talked about it. He inevitably busted. Like that's happened a few times this year, but we're gonna keep doing it. We play this game for the long haul, and I will say 75 players is, like you, Moose, a little high for me personally. But I had a tough time getting lower than that.
Yeah, he was I don't want to say a sneaky figure, but it seemed like every time I ran the builder, it kept giving me not what I wanted of him. Either way, too high, too low, and I was like, this is not a good look.
It was rough, man. I gotta, again, very, very honest here. Like, this week building was pretty tough for me. Couldn't get the players right. The exposures were kind of tough. I had tough times deciding on the game stacks. I had trouble narrowing down my running backs. Really, really tough week. And I think the results kind of show that. Yeah. So, I don't know. I didn't truly feel comfortable the whole way.
Yep. And let's see. Notam says, how much Eifert did you have? So let me see.
Eifert, so I think Notam's making a joke because Eifert was in the winning Millie Maker lineup as a 4-point owned double tight end lineup. Just goodness. Pure insanity that happened.
Puck says, week 13 was challenging. It was, yeah.
It was. So I ended up stacking, obviously stacked the Kansas City Miami game, which mostly worked out well, but then like every player got hurt for Miami, so that sucked. Because I had tons of Devontae Parker, tons of Jakeem Grant. They both got hurt like immediately, so that was killer. Also stacked the Chargers and Atlanta game, which started out good, and then they both Chargers/Falcons the second half, and they just never did anything. Mike Williams also went out basically immediately. He played 3 plays. I had a ton of Mike Williams. So, I mean, you can see the reasons why this failed this week. And then my last game, Chris wrote it up on Sunday, actually made the update, Chicago and Houston. I thought that made for a great high-risk play, and I'm curious to see how high-owned or low-owned some of these stacks were in that game. And the Chicago side did their thing. Houston scored 7 points and was running the ball down 30 points in the third quarter. So when one side doesn't pan out, the game stack ends up busting as a result. So, just lots of reasons things failed this week.
Yep, absolutely. Ken says, if you didn't feel comfortable, did you ever consider playing less?
If I was smart, probably. But I got to say, like, if I feel uncomfortable, other people probably feel uncomfortable too. But yeah, and also I was pretty committed at that point. This was like Sunday morning that I was making my lineup. So yes, in a perfect world, Ken, for most of our people listening, yes, I would advise you, if you don't feel comfortable making lineups, as we say in the Ultimate Guide, you don't have to play the slate. I personally could not do that this week.
Yeah. So what can you do? On to next week. Let's see here, and again, just some of the other top leverage plays. They said talk about Jakeem Grant, less than 1% owned, could have done well. Chris said the largest of oofs, Akins, which was probably the worst attempt of a catch I've ever seen.
Yeah, to his credit, and not to his credit, I guess, but like an excuse for him, he was in the corner of the end zone where the sunlight was popping in, and the ball just hit it right off his arm, wide open. It wouldn't have helped me that much more. Maybe the game changes, but still fucking tilting watching it live.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, how do you want to take it from here, Brian?
I do want to see. So Chicago and Houston, I thought would be super low owned as a stack. And I thought it had a ton of upside. So I'm curious to see how popular or unpopular some of these 4-man Chicago-Houston stacks were.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna go to the game stacks tab, which is still a little clunky, I think, but you just gotta find some people. So you said the Chicago-Houston.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So off the bat, it's gonna be less than 1% because the field, the highest owned for the field was 1.5%, which was Montgomery and Kiki.
So literally, the most popular stack from this game was 2 men, and it was 1.5%. So God forbid we find a 4-man stack from this game.
All right, let's see. Not a 6-man stack. All right, let's see. For who are we looking for? Which 4?
I had Mitch, Mooney, Robinson, and let's say Kiki.
Let's see. Mitch, Mooney, Robinson. Mitch.
Okay,
this
so
one right here, right?
Yeah, these final 2 on the screen.
Yeah, 0.1%, 0.1%.
Yeah, that was probably mostly me. I had a ton of that stack. So that's sick for me. And I think if Houston went off a little bit, forced Chicago to pass more, that game could have really went off. For me, a game that I didn't think there was a clear Thermo 3 stack. Getting a correlation like this for a 0.1% owned lineup, this is the ownership I'm more concerned about than individual players. When I can get a 4-man stack that I think is high upside, highly correlated, and the field has less than 0.1% of it, this is how I win .gif, right?
Yeah. Look, and you can see granted, this stack didn't really go off as much. Every top 1%, granted it's only less than 1, but 0.1 was the field. 0.8 was the top 1% in just these 2 stacks here.
Yeah, I believe it. Like Robinson did pretty well. And honestly, again, that's probably mostly me with those stacks in the top 0.1% because I did have a couple top 1% lineups with this stack. So, yeah, dude, that's pretty exciting. So let's compare this to probably the most popular. Let's see. Maybe let's go to Kansas City, Miami. Let's go to Kansas City, Miami, and look at my home stacks.
So look, I'm filtering by every single stack. That's I think the highest stack. That can't be right, but 2.2% DeAndre Washington and Travis Kelce.
This is all stacks?
According to Fantasy Labs.
I feel like this is wrong. But let's go this feels really wrong.
Let's just go directly to it. Let's see. KC Miami.
2.2%.
And
maybe
so
that
the
is
most
true.
popular 4-man stack, Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelce, DeAndre, with 1%.
That actually might be right, though, if we think about it. That actually might be right. And that was one of my stacks. So even, literally the most popular high upside stack, probably of the week, was 1% owned in GPPs. I don't think it gets much better than that. We continue to look at this every single week. And I know we get the questions a lot loose about, is stacking still profitable? Because we see some ridiculous lineups win. And yeah, again, look back at every year. We generally see some ridiculously stupid lineups win, especially the Millie. But some of these other smaller GPPs too. It just happens that the last couple of weeks have had that, and it feels a lot more recent in our minds that maybe this is the way to go now. But again, we see things like this: 1% of the field doing the most popular stack. And we know that a 4-man stack is going to hit more than 1% of the time.
Yeah.
So the leverage we get over the field by doing this is pretty massive. It continues to show this. And we can only hope that in the future that people see the non-stacks and continue to play those.
Yeah. Let's hope. And I'm actually curious. I was trying to see what the most popular... Yeah, so for example, here's a good example of a stack popping off. You have Denver, Carolina. You have Teddy, Robbie, Curtis, KJ. Hamler.
Yeah.
0.1% of the field had it, but 1.5% of the top 1% had it. So it's the most popular 4-man stack of the 1%.
15 times chance than a regular lineup of getting the top 0.1%. I think that's how the math works. Either way, goes to show it's pretty impressive. And again, I will say this all the time. This show particularly is my lineups in large field GPPs, but using this strategy in 100 player leagues, you have a much higher chance of winning than you would just picking random players or stacking like a quarterback and a tight end or a quarterback and a receiver or whatever.
Yeah.
We only see, when we think in our minds about non-stacks winning, we're looking at these massive contests. Even because you got to think the 100-player leagues, the score is much lower needed. You don't need to hit anywhere close to the optimal. And these 4-man stacks at low ownership give you the best chance of doing that. So it's less you have to get right, especially in smaller contests. You don't have to get everything right. You just need to get a little bit right. And having a 4-man stack pop off is the best way to get to that. So I just got to remind everyone, let's stay the course. I'm going to continue to stay the course. When we see numbers like this, it just reinforces the belief that 3x1 stacking is the way to go in most NFL high-risk contests.
Definitely. Ed says, I'm late. Is there going to be a special WFFC stream?
Ed, we're going to talk about it on Saturday, but as I was telling Ken earlier, like I imagine that'll be flooded with people saying, should I play this player or this player? What do you think about this stack? So if you have specific questions, now's a good time to ask them. We got a few more minutes here, and then of course we'll have the section in the plug on Sunday.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to see how this compares to the Millionaire Maker.
Okay.
The game stacks.
Yeah, and so this week actually is interesting for the WFFC, as Puff points out. We only have 11 games on Sunday on the main slate. 2 on Saturday. We got the Thursday, Sunday, Monday games. So I imagine we'll see some smaller player pools.
Yeah, and so the top 4-man stack in the Millionaire Maker.
Of course, it was fucking chalk Aaron Rodgers.
Chalk. But look, all right. So look, this is chalk. Chalk as hell. Only 0.1% of the field did that.
True. That's a good. Wait, what is this sorted by?
Top 1%.
Sorted by just the field. I'm curious what like the most popular 4-man stack in the field was.
Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey, DeAndre at 0.5%.
So it was literally. So again, this shows the slant is sharper than the millie. I know it's a lower entry point, but the slant has, because of the flatter payout structures, doesn't attract as much casual players. It's more of a pros contest.
Yeah.
This stack was twice as popular in the slant than it was the millie, and that should let us know that it's probably a good move.
Yeah. Patrick says, do you think the big FanDuel WFFC tournament this weekend is going to have more of a normal winner lineup?
Yeah, we'll see, I guess. I imagine it'll be some fucked up lineup that wins, but no, I the last couple of years, I think Jeff Collins won it last year, and then our guy, the Colts, that we always look at, won it 2 years ago, or vice versa. And I think they had pretty correlated lineups when they won. Let's see if we can do it again this year. But Ed's asking, are we focusing more contrarian? Are we fading Henry, or the typical game plan? Yeah, Ed, I think we go with the typical game plan. We're going to trust what Chris tells us with the stacks. We're going to look at high-volume running backs. We're going to get underperforming receivers in there. And we're going to make some moves. But yeah, nothing really changes. I know a lot's at stake for a lot of us, but the strategy that got us here is what's going to take it down for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just curious. I want to see if the team stacks, which is just like particular of a team. I mean, like, look, the chalkiest stack of 2 men was Rodgers and Adams, and that was only 6% of the lineups.
So funny, of course it was. God, that's so annoying. Yeah.
And another thing, since we're here, I guess we can look at duplicates.
Okay. I'm curious to see what the most popular lineup was.
All right, so this guy ran a lineup. There's 3 people who ran the same lineup 150 times.
That's sick.
Probably not optimal. But this lineup here was the most duplicated among users. It's one at the top.
Let's see, so Russell, Aaron Jones. I saw Tim Patrick's his name a lot this week. I guess he was popular. He scored 2 touchdowns the week before.
Yeah.
That's kind of baffling to me to see him be like an optimizer play, because we saw him in a lot of pros lineups, a lot of optimized lineups, right, Moose?
Yeah.
Tim Patrick.
I'm saw him everywhere.
Yeah, that was mind blowing to me to see that. I guess some of the bigger sites must have had him. I guess, I don't know. I completely overlooked that play. I know he scored 1 touchdown. He was cheap, but like that was the most wild thing when reviewing the slate.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last thing is, I know we're usually here till 10:30, so if you have any last questions while we run through this last part, go ahead and ask. The reports tab.
What's this lineup, by the way? Tanya in the flex, Every week, the most duplicated lineup is the double tight end lineup.
Let me see. Let me go back.
Every fucking time. It's like, well, yeah, I gotta jam in Akins and Bob Tunyon.
Jesus. Wow. Okay.
Yep. Good stuff.
Anyway, one thing I really do like that Fantasy Labs added, again, for the salary distribution is, and flex usage, they broke it down by all lineups, top 20, top 10, and top 1%.
The double tight end, super profitable once again. It's unbelievable.
Yep. But yeah, you can see that, again, for salary distribution, generally speaking, people are going to use 500 or more, so you don't have to go below that. And then, yeah, just tilt over double tight end flex.
Yeah, receivers very unprofitable this week in the flex. Running back slightly profitable, and then just print money if you put tight end in the flex this week.
Yeah. Let's see here. Ken says make sure to go 2XO double tight end if you want to win WFFC this week. Yeah.
I honestly should just put one in just for the lulls, right? Just get Derek Carr. No, they play on Thursday. I can't even do that. That's been the most profitable in the season. But I'll get I don't know who's playing Sunday, but I'll get a ridiculous a tight end quarterback stack, add another tight end, win the millie, ride off into the sunset.
Yep. Ed asks, is there a different game plan for FanDuel as opposed to DraftKings? I'd assume James Robinson types aren't as valuable, right?
Yeah, it depends, but like in tournaments, if you're playing James Robinson, yeah, the catching of the passes is nice, but you still got to score touchdowns to get you there in tournaments. So, not as much on FanDuel. Really, you can play the better plays a lot more. Yeah, not much changes. Just, you can play a little bit more optimally with your stacks as opposed to getting kind of crazy.
Yeah. Ed says he's calling Colt stacks win it. Yeah.
Oh, well, Ed is a Colts fan, so this makes sense.
Yeah. Patrick says Gesicki and Hawk. That'll be interesting stack there.
Yeah, and Gesicki's out, so we can't even use him. So maybe we'll use a backup tight end from Miami.
But what if you just Galaxy Brain and still play him?
Yeah, just take the 0 and still win the millie.
That'd be so sick. Cool. So, Brian, is there any last thoughts or anything else you want to see here before I take us out?
No, I think we hit a lot of stuff. Again, just the confirmation. Again, shout out to Fantasy Labs for providing this tool for free. That the game stacking is the way to go. Let's kind of stay the course here. I know we see some really gross lineups winning the big contests.
Yes.
Let's stay the course. And again, WFFC this week. Reach out in the Discord. Hit us up. We're gonna have a little bit longer stream on Saturday, I think, right, Moose? Because we have the Saturday slate as well as Sunday. So We'll have some time this week. We're here to help you out. We've been telling you to get tickets. We're not gonna leave you high and dry as of when the week gets here. So we'll be around to help everybody out.
Absolutely, yeah. And Ed, yes, still one cheap guy from 3-Man Stack. And So until Saturday, where we review WFFC and NFL main slate. Until then, Moose and Brian from Occupy. Peace out.